Was the Mexican-American War, which took place between 1846 and 1848, based on a lie? In this video, we'll explore the origins of the conflict and examine whether there is evidence to support this claim. We'll also discuss the aftermath of the war and its impact on both countries. So stay tuned to find out if the Mexican-American War was truly fought under false pretenses. The Mexican-American War was a conflict between the United States and Mexico that resulted in the U.S. acquiring vast territories in the Southwest, including present-day California, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. But the events leading up to the war have been the subject of much debate over the years. One of the most controversial aspects of the war is the alleged false pretense on which it was fought. The U.S. went to war claiming that Mexican troops had attacked American forces on disputed territory along the Rio Grande. However, critics argue that President James K. Polk deliberately provoked the conflict by sending American troops into contested land in order to expand U.S. territory. They claim that Polk knew that such a move would anger the Mexican government and hoped that it would lead to a war that the U.S. could easily win. So what is the truth behind these claims? Did Polk deliberately provoke Mexico into a war, or were the U.S. actions justified? To understand the origins of the Mexican-American War, it's important to first look at the history of the region in question. The area that is now the southwestern United States was originally inhabited by various Native American tribes. However, the Spanish were the first Europeans to explore the region in the 16th century, and they claimed it for Spain. Over the next centuries, the Spanish colonial authorities established missions and presidios, or fortified settlements, throughout the region to protect it from the French and British. One of these presidios was located at the mouth of the Rio Grande, which served as the border between Texas and Mexico after Mexico gained independence from Spain in 1821. However, the location of the border was disputed, and the U.S. claimed that it extended further south along the Rio Grande. This dispute over the border was one of the main sources of tension between the two countries in the 1840s. In 1845, Texas was annexed by the U.S. and became the 28th state despite continued disputes with Mexico over the border. President James K. Polk, who was a Democrat, was eager to resolve the issue once and for all, and he wanted to do so in a way that would benefit the U.S. Polk believed that the U.S. had a manifest destiny to expand its territory from the Atlantic to the Pacific, and he saw the acquisition of California as essential to this goal. In 1846, Polk sent General Zachary Taylor with 4,000 troops to the disputed territory between the two rivers in an effort to provoke a conflict with Mexico. He also dispatched John Slidell to negotiate with the Mexican government, offering to purchase California for $30 million. When Slidell's mission failed, Polk made the decision to go to war. On May 13, 1846, a group of Mexican cavalrymen crossed the Rio Grande and attacked a detachment of U.S. troops led by American Captain Seth Thornton. The skirmish resulted in the death of one American soldier and several wounded. News of the incident quickly spread throughout the U.S., and Polk used it to justify declaring war on Mexico. He claimed that the attack was part of a larger Mexican plan to invade and conquer Texas, and that the U.S. had no choice but to defend itself. Congress declared war on Mexico on May 13, 1846, and the Mexican-American War began. The war was fought primarily in Mexico as U.S. forces sought to capture California and other strategic locations. Meanwhile, Polk's administration faced criticism from within the U.S. Many people, including some members of his own party, opposed the war and accused him of lying about the cause. They argued that Polk had sent troops into disputed territory in order to provoke a war, and that he had exaggerated the threat posed by Mexico. Some critics even suggested that Polk had manufactured the incident that led to the war by ordering American troops to enter contested areas. Despite the controversy, Polk was able to secure funding for the war effort, and the U.S. military was able to achieve significant victories against the Mexican army. By 1847, U.S. forces had captured key cities such as Monterrey, Veracruz, and Puebla, and in 1848 they entered Mexico City. Faced with the prospect of further defeats, the Mexican government sued for peace. The Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, signed on February 2, 1848, officially ended the war and granted the U.S. vast territories in the Southwest, including present-day California, Nevada, Utah, and parts of Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, and Wyoming. The U.S. paid Mexico $15 million for the land, which was 5 times the amount offered by the U.S. prior to the war. The Mexican-American War had a profound impact on both countries. For the U.S., it marked the beginning of its emergence as a major power in the Western Hemisphere and provided it with vast natural resources and new territories to exploit. For Mexico, the war resulted in the loss of more than half of its territory and left it deeply resentful of the U.S. The legacy of the war continues to be felt today in the ongoing tensions between the two countries over issues such as immigration and border security. There is considerable evidence that James K. Polk intentionally provoked the Mexican-American War in order to acquire California and other territories. One piece of evidence is Polk's behavior prior to the war. In 1845, Polk annexed Texas, which enraged the Mexican government and made war more likely. Polk also sent troops to the disputed border region in 1846 in an effort to provoke a conflict. Additionally, Polk's public statements reveal his aggressive stance towards Mexico. For example, in his annual message to Congress in 1846, Polk claimed that the U.S. had a superior claim to the disputed territory and that he was willing to use force to protect American interests. Furthermore, the circumstances surrounding the skirmish that led to the war are highly suspicious. The Mexican cavalrymen who attacked American troops were led by a man named Juan Nepomuceno Almonte, who was a close friend of Polk's envoy, John Slidell. Some historians have argued that Polk may have had a hand in planning the attack in order to provide a pretext for war. Finally, the ease with which the U.S. military defeated the Mexican army suggests that Polk may have intentionally provoked a conflict that he knew the U.S. could easily win. By using these tactics, Polk was able to secure the vast territories that he desired and fulfill the U.S.'s manifest destiny. However, this came at a great cost to Mexico, which lost more than half of its territory and suffered greatly during the war. There is clear evidence that James K. Polk provoked the Mexican-American War in order to acquire California and other territories. His actions caused the deaths of thousands of people and resulted in the loss of life and property. Additionally, the war had a lasting impact on the relationship between the two countries, which continues to be felt today. While the acquisition of California and other territories brought some benefits to the U.S., it is important to acknowledge the human cost of the war and the long-term effects on both countries. The Mexican-American War was a controversial conflict that has been the subject of much debate over the years. While the acquisition of California and other territories brought about significant changes to the U.S., it is important to remember the human cost of the war and the lasting impact it had on both countries. The war was fought under false pretenses, and the actions of President James K. Polk undoubtedly played a role in provoking the conflict. Despite the controversies surrounding the war, it is an important part of American history that should not be forgotten. Studying the causes and consequences of the Mexican-American War can help us better understand the complex history of the United States and its relationship with Mexico. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more historical insights. Thank you for watching.